Can I get some thumbs up from the crowd just to make sure that you can, in fact, hear me? Yeah, great. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm just going to get started if that's okay. So, first things first, thank you for giving up 45 minutes to an hour of your Fridays. I appreciate that it's lunch break, and for people in Australia, we're probably the only thing between you and your weekend. So, Zach and I are going to try and make it as entertaining as possible. So, today's agenda. Pretty straightforward, to be honest. I'll talk through the housekeeping on the next slide about how today's session is going to work, how you can ask questions. There are a couple of options there, basic etiquette stuff. Then I'm going to dive into information about Tara. So, who are Zach and I? Who are the people talking to you today? Why Tara exists? So, we'll talk very briefly through our theory of change. So, what we see as being the challenges in the landscape and how Tara is uniquely solved to address those challenges. And then we'll get into the details a little bit, which is, I think, maybe why some of you are here today. So, how exactly does Tara operate? As a participant, what would you come to expect from the experience, or even as a TA, and then how you might go applying? And that's it. We plan to be really quick. We've got about 14 slides, and we're going to spend about a minute on each. So after that, we're going to dive into what will be the bulk of today's session, which will be a Q&A. So I'll talk a little bit more about how the Q&A work in the next slide. So first things first, we're already being recorded. And some people sometimes prefer not to have their faces and not to have their names attached to a Zoom thing, sometimes when they're related to career stuff. And we do plan on sharing the video for people who prefer to either not do Zooms on Friday afternoons or watch them on 2x speed after the fact. So this is your opportunity. If you wanted to anonymize yourself, you can do that now, but don't let me make you paranoid. Please stay on mute unless you're asking a question. I think we're expecting up to 80 people today. So if everybody simultaneously unmutes themselves to talk at the same time, it might get a little bit crazy. We've allocated 45 minutes to today, but we're relatively flexible. If we find that the slides were so amazing that nobody has any questions, then we're happy to wrap early. Equally, we're happy to keep going after the 45-minute mark. So you guys have planned your afternoons. If you want to hang around and ask us some extra questions, you're totally welcome to do so. Zach and I have absolutely nothing to do after this except get home to our families later today. And some protocol for the Q&A. So there's two ways to do this. Zach over here is manning another laptop that you can't really see down there. So what he's got on that laptop is the chat open. So you can either post your questions in the chat during the Q&A section, or you could even post them before the Q&A section if you feel like you won't remember it or you just want to get it out. The alternative, once the Q&A starts, is to raise your hand. So if you click the reactions button, you'll have a little bar down the bottom in your Zoom. You should then be able to click raise hand, and then Zach will just manage that queue. So those are your two options. With that said, I'm going to dive into the slides. So my name's Yanni, as you can tell. So I founded AI Safety Australia and New Zealand about 3.5 years ago. Partway into running it, we created Tara as a test to see if this kind of program would work, and it worked extremely well. So I had the thought, well, if it worked well in Sydney and Melbourne, why wouldn't it work well in underserved cities across APAC? So I put together a grant proposal to some funders in the AI safety space, and they equally thought that it was a good idea. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today. Previous to worrying about ChatGPT eventually becoming superintelligence, I'd spent about a decade in marketing. So in-house at places like LinkedIn and then at agencies. Before I talk about myself for too long, I'm going to hand over to Zach to talk about himself for a little bit.
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Zach. So I am the technical program manager here at Tara. So how I did Tara version 1, so earlier in 2025, I was part of the inaugural cohort there. So I went through the program, sort of similar to what we'll talk about today. A bit of background on me is I did my studies, my education at university in maths and physics, and I'm currently partway through my master's in AI itself. I kind of came to a lot of this stuff through the effective altruism route, if anyone is aware of that. So I was a former president of the EA club at the University of Melbourne and helped organize some of the conferences there. And as work prior to this, I used to go into high schools at a place called Elevate Education. I would give seminars to high school students about things like time management and study skills, and helped develop some of their most recent AI seminars last year.
Seems relevant.
Yes.
Cool. So don't want to do too much on context, but I think it's like relatively useful for you to get into our brains if you're going to be applying to be a participant. So what's the motivation here? Well, Zach and I think four things. Firstly, artificial general intelligence may arrive very soon. It might arrive in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. We think it's increasingly less plausible that it's any time after that. So we think it's going to happen very soon. And it doesn't seem like we currently have any reliable ways to align such a powerful AI to human values and goals. And this could present catastrophic risks. So we also think that in reducing the chances of a catastrophic risk, there are essentially like 3 interventions. You can either donate money, you can do advocacy, or you can use your career to try and prevent those risks. And that career pathway is essentially what Tara is about. Now, just because it's potentially impactful doesn't mean it's an easy thing to do. So we've found that there are essentially 2, maybe 2.5 barriers for people in APAC currently that are technically minded, wanting to help reduce catastrophic risk. The first barrier is that APAC talent simply can't relocate or take extended time off for the programs that are currently being offered by the AI safety education ecosystem. Lots of people, myself included, I've got a 4-year-old, my wife's pregnant, can't take 10 weeks off to do maths or 5 weeks off to do arena. So the solution that we came up with for Tara is we meet you where you are. So it's part-time, it's a local format, so you can keep your job, all your studies, and your security. Barrier number 2 is that a lot of talent is unsure of 2 things. One, in general, is AI safety the right career path for me? And 2, even of those who are technically minded and think this is a problem that they want to address with their career, they don't know which part of technical AI safety works for them. So the solution here is creating a broad curriculum that lets people test their career fit, broadly speaking, within AI safety, but then also by testing out MEC, interp, evals, reinforcement learning, they can see by getting in the weeds of it which one suits them. That's by learning the curriculum, but also doing a project at the end. So I'll talk this slide through. Yeah, sure. So what is Tara? So I've ended the high level stuff. I'm now going to get into a little bit more granular detail. So a little bit of context. So the curriculum that we use is from Arena. They run their program for 5 weeks straight over in London. So that's boot camp style. Arena also once tried to run a fully remote version where people basically did it in their own time at home. And what they found was the remote version had about 4 out of 52 people finish it. But the content is really, really hard. So what we said was, well, what if we find a middle path through those 2, where we don't expect people to all drop everything in their lives and fly to London for 5 weeks, but also clearly being fully remote on your own just isn't enough support. So the hybrid model is that we bring Saturday sessions to you in your city with a cohort of like-minded people who all believe in the same mission that want to get similar career outcomes. Instead of having the TAs in person, we try to get the best TAs by having the remote and then having those TAs drawn from a global talent pool. So that means you'll have great TAs giving presentations from, depending on what city you're in, about 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then available throughout the rest of the Saturday session to be able to help unblock you from wherever you might be within that week's content. Then you also get Slack support from the TA throughout the week. Having run this for the first time early last year, we found that was a great level of support. We had 94% recommendation rate from the participants. We had 90% people finish. We had 89% of people more confident and motivated to pursue AI safety as a career path. So we feel like we've actually struck a really good balance here in terms of what's needed to get people through the content, learning it well, and more motivated than when they finished.
Cool. So I'm just going to speak a little bit now about what exactly a Saturday session looks like and then how you can expect to engage with the Tara stuff throughout the week. So on a Saturday, that first hour, as Yanni just said, the TA will be delivering a roughly 1 hour lecture on the technical concepts covered in that week. We'll talk about exactly what those technical concepts are on the next slide. But for now, essentially what's happening is that there's going to be a bunch of stuff that you're going to do in the paired programming that you're going to do practical exercises for. And the TA will go over the core concepts that you're going to need to know in order to complete that during that first hour. Then hours 2 to 3, after that's done, you'll be paired up with someone in your city. And this will change from week to week. And you'll be doing pair programming to implement what the TA has just talked about and what is in the ARENA curriculum. So pair programming, in case you are not familiar with this, there will be 2 of you. One of you will be what we would call like a driver and a passenger. And so one of you will be sitting there with your laptop trying to figure out what to do to answer the questions, how to solve the exercises, doing actual coding. And someone will be sitting there giving you feedback, helping you out, sort of helping you think through the process. And then you will switch, a little bit up to you exactly how you implement this. We have some ideas, but you can switch that up so that you both get a chance to program it and you both get a chance to talk. At midday, there will be a progress update. Where did you just get up to in the exercises for the day? And then we'll head off to lunch. You go and all have lunch together, have a nice, fun, social brain break, and then come back for the second half of the day where you do more pair programming to try and finish off the exercise that you've been doing. And then at the end of the day, another progress update, and we'll wrap up before the next week. During the week itself, as Yanni mentioned, you'll have Slack support from your TA, so you'll always be able to ask any questions throughout there. But we're roughly expecting somewhere between 2 and 7 hours of independent learning to finish off what you maybe didn't finish during the Saturday session itself. There is a lot of content in there, and to clarify any questions that you might have. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so it's on the Saturdays that a new topic gets introduced, and then throughout the week, the expectation is that you use those 2 to 7 hours to mostly on your own embed the content. And then in the following Saturday, new topic starts and repeat ad nauseum for 11 weeks.
So what is the actual curriculum here? What are we actually covering? If anyone's looked at the ARENA curriculum before, you'll be familiar with this, but I just want to give you a quick rundown on how it works. So the first 2 weeks, including a week 0 optional sort of prerequisites thing to make sure you feel up to date. What will be covered is essentially the basics that you're going to need in order to be able to implement the next sort of 4 things that come along here. So prerequisites will include programming and maths stuff that you might require, concepts that you may not be super familiar with, essentially making sure that you'll be able to proceed with the program and engage with it without being too confused. So PyTorch practice of the library that will be used quite a lot. Convolutional neural networks, ResNets, and optimization, a few foundational topics around machine learning as well. Then we'll move into the first proper AI safety sort of topic, which is going to be around the basics of the transformer, the architecture which is being used in large language models to this day is really important to understand, and mechanistic interpretability. So there's a lot of content you could cover in something like mech-interp. We'll cover superposition and SAEs and some introductory things. There are further topics within ARENA that you could explore if you would choose to, but what we'll cover in these weeks is the basics of the transformer, what the introduction to mech-interp entails, and then a little bit of a dive into superposition and sparse autoencoders. Then we'll move on in the next 3 weeks to reinforcement learning. And what we'll cover here is an introduction to what RL actually is, teach you the basics in the first week. The next week will be focused on PPO, proximal policy optimization, so that we can get into RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback, and that is a very big topic within AI right now. And then the last 3 weeks of content, of actual ARENA content, will be on evals. So we'll do an introduction to what evals are, similar to the previous weeks, give you a sort of set you up to then get onto the rest of the interesting content, how we generate data sets, what is Inspect, what are the frameworks currently being used within evals, and then a little bit of a touch on LLM agents as well. The final 3 weeks is where you might have remember if you've read about us on our website or anything like that, we will do a project. So you will get the chance to choose one of these topics or something related to them and essentially choose a topic of your own, a research project of your own, or a project of your own. It doesn't even have to be strictly research that will allow you to demonstrate what you've learned and contribute something and have something to show for all the effort that you put in over these few weeks. During those 3 weeks, you'll have support from your TAs and you'll spend them essentially doing a bit of planning and implementation and basically trying to develop a deliverable result that you can then give as a presentation in our final week. So week 14 will essentially be dedicated entirely to presentations on what you've done during this project phase.
Cool. I'm conscious that we've already gone slightly over time and the priority is answering your questions. So maybe we'll speed through the last 4 slides. Is this me or you?
This is me.
Okay.
This will be nice and quick. Why should you apply? Well, the program is completely free. So the first thing is to just mention that a expert teaching assistant will be covered. Really incredible access to that sort of knowledge. City organisers will manage the Saturday logistics. It's very easy for you. Saturday lunches will be covered for you guys to sit together and eat, and compute credits for the coursework and projects. So access to GPUs and things like that. Dedicated study spaces, so you'll have an in-person physical location, and also access to AI safety career planning with Yoni.
Cool. I'm not going to talk about this too much because I already mentioned that we got great numbers, mostly on the left. On the right, the V1 ended in May. So we did a 6-month follow-up and we found that from the people that responded to our outreach, 29% had transitioned to AI safety roles and 29% had secured competitive fellowships. That doesn't count Zach if you count this as your job.
Yeah.
Felt a bit weird putting you in there
Yeah.
as a stat. So the results have been really good so far. So we're proud of that, and hence why we're expanding the program. So who should apply? You'll find all these details in the application form as well as the website. Strong English proficiency is really important. The reason is that the TAs will be presenting in English, and even though you'll have your city cohort and you'll be with them in person, we've designed the program so that whether you're in Tokyo or Manila or Melbourne or Taipei, you're all starting at the same time and you're doing each week at the same time. So if somebody has a question either midweek or on the Saturday and they post it into Slack, you're getting access to 70 people who probably are blocked on the same thing at the same time. That synchronicity is really important, and it only works if we have everybody speaking the same language, literally. Strong programming background. I think someone in the comments asked about Python. Python is primarily what we're looking at.
Yep.
You need to be able to attend at least 11 out of the 14 Saturday sessions. So that's necessary for certification. The TARA certification will only mean something if it means something. So we enforce relatively strict rules around coming to a certain number of sessions, but also just arriving on time. So the rule that we've set is that we want people at the city cohort office space within 30 minutes of the start time. So if you start at 9:30 in Sydney, we expect you there by 10 a.m. If you're later than 10 a.m., then the city organizer has been asked to mark you as absent. You can still stay for the day, but that counts as one of the 3 out of 14 that you can miss for that week. Reason that's important is because we just take super seriously this idea that you're not just individuals learning, you're part of a community that you're co-designing. And if someone's just chronically late every week, then it does take away from the norms and values for each city cohort. So we will be enforcing relatively strict rules around those 2 things. And then also you need to be able to deliver a project presentation at the end. Logistics and key dates. So applications closed 23rd of Jan. We expect to give feedback on whether your application has been accepted within 2 weeks of that. So early Feb, maybe 7th to 14th. We're trying to be ambitious around it. And then about a month after that, we've got the icebreaker session. And then 1 week after the icebreaker session is the first Saturday session. So graduate status, as I mentioned, 11 sessions, project presentation. You get a certificate of completion. You get access to the TARA alumni network, as well as the project. Q&A, great. I think we went over. Oh, not by much. Okay, that's okay. I feel less bad now. So I will just stop sharing my screen. Let me know. Bear with me for 1 second. Great. Cool. Okay. So what we might do is we might work our way through the questions that have been posted into the chat, and then maybe we'll work through the any questions anybody might have that they want to ask us. So just feel free to unmute yourself after we've worked through the ones in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself, put your video on if you feel like it, and let us know what you think. But I'll hand over to Zach now to make his way through.
Cool. So I'll start with Katie, your question, because you said you need to leave at 3:30, so I'll just make sure I get to you nice and early. So in terms of the mathematical background that you need, I would say it is less important than the programming background. That is probably a strong programmer that's a little bit shaky in their maths is probably still okay to be going through this content. There is a fair bit of linear algebra and calculus, particularly in some of the foundational sort of topics, where understanding that deeply will, I think, give you a better sort of sense of what you're going through and what you're learning and how it all makes sense together. There are a couple of topics within, particularly Mech Interp, where understanding like linear algebra in particular, what a basis is and all these sorts of things can come in handy and it just sort of increase your understanding. I don't think though it's the sort of thing I would say if you're not 100% on this, don't apply, because I think there are things, even if you have just basic sort of year 12 familiarity, where you'll be able to pick up what you need to do. Matrices are, the aim of the game for so much of this, that as long as you have a basic understanding of those, I think you'll probably be okay. Let me know if you need any more clarification on that, but that's how I would answer that question. Fantastic. So then, what have we got here? Peter, you asked the minimum number of applicants for a cohort in a city based in Canberra. I see Katie said me too for that. You want to talk about that, Yanni?
Yeah, okay. So the official answer is 10, but this next one, don't tell your friends. Honestly, it kind of depends. Like, we had 11 in Sydney and 9 in Melbourne, and I felt nervous about Melbourne last time around. I'm going to say 8 if there's something that I can see within all of their applications that gives me the very strong sense that they're extremely dedicated. The reason I say this is because there's it's not just about the amount of work we have to put into spitting out an office. It's also inevitably sometimes things just go wrong, and I don't want to see a number dwindle down to a point where it stops feeling like a community. That's a really big thing for us. You're there to support each other, and there's a critical mass needed to give it that vibe. So the official answer is 10.
Fantastic. Okay, Isa, 2 questions here. Number 1, I'll be traveling on the final week. Possible to do the project presentation on the preceding week. Still like to do it in person to gather better feedback if possible. Yes.
So you can do it the week before, or you've got within 2 weeks of the presentation week to do it at some point. You can deliver it via Loom. You can record the thing, right? So we're slated to give the presentations on Saturday, June 14th. As long as you've recorded yourself presenting by the 28th, totally fine. So you get 2 weeks leeway.
Awesome. And your second question about the prerequisite math, I'd say the same that I said to Katie. If you have any further questions about that, let me know and I'm happy to answer them.
Well, good. Thank you.
No worries. Also, is the project individual or can you do it in pairs? Great question. Either is fine. Depends on who's in your cohort and who is interested in what you're interested in. You're very welcome to do it in pairs or in groups.
Yeah, we make an effort to get people thinking about their project ideas as early as possible. There's a bit of a tension here because we don't start evals until week 8.
Yeah, 8, I think, yes.
Yeah, right.
8, 9, 10.
So you can start thinking about them earlier. However, you might just start Mech Interp and be like, I love Mech Interp, I want to do Mech Interp, screw evals. So then it won't matter. But if you want to try evals before you've finished Mech Interp, before you decide on your project, then you kind of have to wait. what we do is we encourage you to think through those things through the weeks. So we get you brainstorming, we get you shortlisting, and then we get you finalizing ideas. And that's all done with the TA. And through that process, inevitably, you're going to be talking to your fellow participants about what you're doing. So we're encouraging that cross-pollination. And you might find that your ideas are close enough to someone else's that it makes sense to pair up.
Yeah, absolutely. Edric, so your question is about specific location in Manila, where it will be held, and other current number of applications at your location, how we're doing. Manila has a lot of applications, a lot of strong applications, which is great, fantastic, really good news. So it's very, very exciting. So that's kind of the state of that at the moment. There is also a specific location. Yanni, you probably know the exact, I don't know whether we were talking about exactly where that is.
I'm going to be honest, I haven't, I've read it multiple times, but I haven't said it out loud yet. And I'm not going to be the guy that attempts to describe something in a foreign language for the first time in front of a large Zoom call. So yes, we've got one. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's located centrally within Manila and should be relatively easy to get to. I understand the traffic can be really difficult in Manila in the mornings, which is why we've made the start time 10 a.m. with a 30-minute leeway if you absolutely need it.
Absolutely. Bob, when can we know details about where in the city the office spaces are and who the TAs are? When will that information be coming out? Probably earliest.
So depends on what city you're in.
Yeah.
So Sydney will probably be the Sydney Knowledge Hub. Brisbane will probably be at the University of Queensland. Melbourne is in the Belroy offices in the city. Manila, I can't remember the name of it. Tokyo will be at a university in Shibuya. So we're like 90% of the way there. Maybe even drop my email in.
Sure.
Yeah. So just feel free, if we haven't like answered anything to your liking and there's like a specific detail that isn't worth rehashing, just email us. We're totally happy to accept emails. That was the first one.
And who the TAs are.
We're interviewing TAs now. So we spoke to somebody 2 days ago who's an Arena grad, looks great, probably going to come on board. We're doing interviews next week as well. So that'll all be clarified probably within 3 weeks.
Fantastic. Kenyon, is it possible to switch between cities halfway? Currently based in Melbourne, but might have to move to Singapore mid-April. I have not considered this particular case before. What's
So short answer is probably. Yeah. So if you're, as long as you attend 11 in person and are on time for each of those, it shouldn't be an issue.
Ajay, does each TA need to give a separate lecture on the topics of Arena? Also, what would the content of each lecture need to be? Research-oriented coverage or basic coverage of those topics? To answer the second part of that question first, it will not be so much research-oriented as just giving the basic concepts so that the participants within your city can understand what they're about to encounter and have the framing of what's most important. It's essentially priming them, very much similar to how I would say a university lecture would be, priming you for tutorials later in the week. That's the sort of content for lectures. Each day giving a separate lecture on the topics of Arena. Yeah, we sort of expect the TAs to be across all of the Arena content that we're going to be covering. You may have certain areas that you're more familiar with and less familiar with, and they might complement one another, but we do want familiarity with the entirety of the curriculum that we're going to be covering there.
We expect the 3 to 4 TAs that we hire to essentially be working as a team. So they'll be producing the slides together and supporting each other, because we don't expect everybody to be perfect in each area of the curriculum.
Perfect. What are the start and end times and lunch breaks? E.g., if you need to run off for lunch, skip 1 to 2 hours because of a wedding, might be considered an absence. The times are dependent on the city that you are tuning in from. I believe Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane, we're looking at a 9:30 start for a 5:35 p.m. finish. And then what are our times for
lunch?
For lunch with that. Yeah.
But if you're in, say, Australia, then lunch is 12:30 to 1:30. Yeah, so we want everybody taking lunch together. So what we found from the first cohort was that I suppose there's like 2 extreme ways that you could go about doing this. Everybody gets lunch on their own within your city cohort, or you get Uber Eats delivered. The second option is that everybody goes to lunch together. And we found that the city that every single week went to lunch together built stronger relationships in the 6 months after Tara finished. So we take lunch really seriously. So we've set it up such that lunch starts and ends at exactly the same time every week. We want you out of the office because you need the brain break, as Zach mentioned. We would, go for a 10-minute walk, go to a restaurant, but also it's an opportunity to just like learn more about each other and develop those relationships. So yeah.
All right. Specific criteria that you guys are looking for and what determines how I'm having strong Python programming. So earlier on the strong Python programming, as context of what I came into Tara version 1.9, I came from a maths and a physics background without an insane amount of programming. I'd done some through my course and things like that. I'd done a sort of introductory machine learning course. I knew what a for loop was. I knew what an if-else statement was. I knew what a function was. I could do these sorts of things. I was probably on the lower end of the sort of understanding, I would say, coming into Tara version 1. But if you've been able to write functions and understand the basic flow of code, I think you're probably better than you may think in that case. But also having understanding of this is complemented by understanding of machine learning itself within code and things like that. So you've written here like data structures and algorithms. If you know data structures and algorithms, and if you've worked with ML frameworks, you are strong in programming by our standards, I would say. There'll be people who would have a stronger stance, but I think that I would consider that strong. If you have specific questions about that, feel free to ping me in the chat and I'll answer anything as well. Okay. How flexible is the in-person time commitment? As someone who's unsure if they can commit to 14 Saturdays, how do we feel about that? And then a second question later, which we can. Oh no, the same question. Yep, getting to leave at days early, do other work, things like that.
Yeah, so generally it's not flexible. We try to make it as black and white as possible. Otherwise, we just have this intuition that it won't work. So we try to be flexible by saying you don't need to attend 14 out of 14 Saturdays consecutively, because that would be crazy. People get sick, people have weddings, and then random things happen. So that's why we've set it at 11 out of the 14. We think that's the right balance between a hiring manager in the future being able to confidently look at a Tara certificate on someone's resume and knowing this person learned stuff because they attended the thing, but also acknowledging the fact that people have lives and random things happen. So we tried to hold what is a high standard, but one that we think is reasonable. And this was essentially around the average as well that we saw from the first iteration of Tara. So if you're coming in and you're thinking 14 seems like a lot, if 11 seems like a lot, I think this would probably involve planning. So looking at your calendar and going, okay, every 3 months, I probably do have a wedding, and then I have one other thing, and then I get one thing up my sleeve. So I think it's worth looking at your calendars.
All right. Okay. Jerome, an in-house legal and AI governance professional, had some certifications in R data analytics and Python from years ago, but don't have much real-world coding analytics experience. Can you still apply for Tara? If you're interested in AI sector and pivoting into that area. Yeah, so essentially what we're really looking for is enough of a background in programming and some maths to be able to handle the content and wanting to work on reducing catastrophic risks in AI. So clearly got the second part of that equation. With the background knowledge, it's what I would recommend essentially, and it's similar to what I did in preparation, also not having come from spending a lot of my day doing programming and coding, just running through a basic refresher course or something like that, I think would be sufficient to make you feel like you knew what you were doing. Having worked with R, having worked with Python previously, I imagine this wouldn't be a problem for you, but I did do a bit of preparation just to make sure that I was on the same page with what was going on. So I think that would be a necessary step, but there's nothing to suggest that you wouldn't be able to apply.
And part of the prerequisites are for before week 1, right?
Yes.
So if you're accepted into Tara, you're going to get an email saying, "Hey, you're in. seriously think about doing these three things before you get started so that
Yeah.
you feel confident and ready, because it's like it's reasonably steep. Like we try not to mince words. 11 out of 14 Saturday sessions is hard. The arena curriculum is hard.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be hard, but you get lots of support. You get your group, you get your TA, you get all the compute, you have your office space. So yeah, just wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that prerequisite week, it would be everything you need and more, if you are familiar with that, to be confident doing everything else. The prerequisites in there, they step you through really well. They give you a bunch of coding practice as well as instructive videos and lectures and things like that. That would be a great place to start. You'd feel okay if you finish that. You'd have no problems. Yeah.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Andy.
Cool.
All right. We've got Possia on the Canberra group. That is a possibility. We've got a strong Canberra representation. I can get you a space, and a lot of folk from the Australian federal government who wouldn't otherwise apply perhaps separate to this process. I'll
send me an email.
Yeah, I'll drop the email. That's going to be something worth chatting through for sure. Thank you.
We've had a couple of people say, "I'm from Canberra. I'll drive to Sydney." So if we get enough of a Canberra interest, but it's just shy of what we want, I could always say to those two people who are saying, "I'll drive to Sydney from Canberra. Don't worry about it." It really depends on how many total applications we get and the strength of those applications.
Awesome. Right. Thank you. Raymond. Not terribly AGI pilled, so I tend to focus on short-term AI risks instead of existential risk. Will this be an issue?
So AGI pilled, so I tend to focus on short-term AI risk. No, probably not. I think it's probably better that you just apply and you make clear what you mean within your application. So this is, I don't think you need to be AGI pilled to worry about catastrophic risks, to be honest. I think you could probably just have current level Claude diffused across the economy enough for us to seriously worry about cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. So the devil's in the detail there. What do you actually mean? So spell that out in your application. But yes, we are worried and focused on reducing harms that are essentially high in scale and very damaging.
Yep. All right. Repeat what you answered during. Oh, sorry, AJ, you got disconnected on the train through a tunnel regarding the TA question. I'm just going to have to quickly remind myself of exactly what the question was. Let me just scroll up one moment. And then I'll get to. Okay, each TA need to give a separate lecture. Oh, that's right. Yes. So essentially, what we were saying there is that in terms of the content of the lectures, think of it essentially like a university lecture, prepping your students for their tutorials coming up in the week. It is not research focused, it is content and conceptual, theoretically focused, potentially some worked examples and things like that. That's the type of thing that we're looking for in the lectures, although you have a lot of flexibility to design this amongst yourselves and other TAs. And we do expect each TA to be across the entirety of the curriculum that we're covering. But again, as I said, we want to encourage collaboration within the TA. So if you have a particular area that you find a little bit more challenging, there might be someone who knows a bit more and they can help you out with that. If there's any other questions that you have surrounding that, feel free to jump in the chat. All right. Cool. I think that is all the current questions. If I've missed you, please let me know. Does anyone have, feel free to keep adding them to the chat, of course, but feel free to also put your hand up. And you can unmute, turn your camera on if you would like as well, and ask us any questions as well. If not, we'll probably give it another minute, and if nobody has the extra questions, then we'll call. I'm Zach, and this is Yanni. Yes, good question.
I might add a little more detail to my question if I could, just because I've got it. Probably introduce myself. I'm POS. I'm the information architect for MyGov and Services Australia, working on the whole of government GovAI content libraries for truth and society. I also worked on MIT's global AI risks assessments and mechanistic interpretability. I'm tied to the central AI teams in federal government. We've just released an AI strategy as Australia.
POS, can I just interrupt you very quickly? you may have heard this earlier, but we are going to post this video online for anybody that hasn't been able to attend. And just before you start, like, I'm totally happy for you to like use your own judgment here about what you're starting to talk about, but I heard you starting to talk about government. I thought I'd just repeat that just in case. But please go ahead if it's totally fine.
All good. I don't think I'm releasing any state secrets.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Then keep going, please.
The APS strategy is trying to build AI capabilities in the public service. And so I was wondering if we could connect you into the central AI teams and maybe look at how we might train up the Australian Public Service to handle these better. I don't know if it fits this session. I can either get people to come and apply to this or crowd other people out, or do you think we should be handling this outside of that engagement?
I think we should probably take this offline. Definitely keen to continue the conversation, but maybe what we'll do is we'll set up another meeting between you, me, and Zach. How does that sound?
Sounds great, mate. Thank you.
Thanks. Great.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks again. Thanks everybody for attending. Appreciate it. It's Friday afternoon for everybody. Like I said, we're going to post the video online, so follow our LinkedIn channel to find that in case there was something that you wanted to hear back a second time. But otherwise, we really look forward to seeing your applications and possibly some of you in person. So with that said, lovely to see you and goodbye. Oh, we do have another.
One final question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Ronja, just confirming we'll likely find out application outcomes closer to week 0. Yes,
much earlier
true, but much earlier than that. Yeah, it'll, I'd say early
February. Early Feb.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
See you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.